EMP, or electromagnetic pulse. It can actually naturally be set off by the sun with a solar flare. But what we're most concerned about is if it's set off because of a nuclear detonation high above in the atmosphere. With the recent Chinese balloon that went over, there has been a lot of speculation that a nuclear device that was attached to that balloon could have been set off and could have caused an EMP. One of the things about an EMP is it will completely disable the power grid and possibly all electronics. There is a lot of theory, and they don't know exactly to what extent that we could see damage, but they do know that they've done testing, and it is very probable that an EMP set off could definitely cripple the United States. So we're going to look at 15 things that you can use and do and put back that will protect you in case there is an EMP attack. This is not about a Faraday cage. It's not about taking your items and putting them somewhere. This is about essential items for survival. To be honest with you, if you are already a prepper and you're a survivalist and you've been thinking about these things ahead of time, most of these things you should have put back anyway. But because EMP is such a scary term, and a lot of people for the first time are seeing it, I think it's very important to look at some things that you need to do on a minimal level to put things back and just to give yourself a fighting chance. Now guys, in the rule of threes, you only have 3 days without water, and that's critical. So here we have the big Berkey. We can filter water through it, and we've been using these for years. Also, you can boil water. The only problem is you have sediment, things like that that could be in the water. Storing water is also an option, and you can do gallon jugs. You can do the small water bottles by the case. It's fairly cheap. But having some water stored back, especially initially, is going to be very important. And of course, if you have a well, it can be affected by an EMP. So having a way to access that water. Rain catchment systems are some of the easiest to put in, and it harvests water just passively. It comes down your gutter system. If you don't have gutters, you can put up a small section, which I did at one point at another house we lived in. And so these are fairly reasonable to put together. I've got a whole video on how to do this. And to me, having rainwater just set back, it's just a no-brainer. And then we'll, of course, filter it as well and get out the sediment. But we have our big Berkey for that. Cash. Cash is king. And especially at the beginning of a grid down EMP type situation, you're not going to be able to use your cards. And so having cash on hand is very important. In the long term, this could be worthless. But right up front, you should be able to get by with using this, especially when people don't really know what's going on. And so you'll be ahead of the game with cash. And guys, no matter what the grid down situation is, even a power outage, having cash on hand is vital. How much you should have, it's according to what your budget is, according to what you can afford. But you should be putting back cash on a regular basis. Precious metals. This is a big one, guys. You know, this is something that's tangible. It's in your hand. These are 90% silver. They're 1964 and below, and that's when the U.S. government made silver coins. And one of the things I love about junk silver particularly is if I give them a quarter and they can see what date it is, they can identify it. These are very difficult to reproduce, and especially with the wear on most of these. I like to get smaller denominations. Of course, quarters and dimes are my favorites because if you find something that you need or you want to barter with, you want to buy, you're not overpaying. You can get that down a little bit more with the dimes. And two, Mercury dimes, Eisenhower dimes, it doesn't matter. These are just worn, and there's not really any other value other than the silver. Now, we do have some gold coins, and we have some Walking Liberties. These are not cheap, but they're smaller. In fact, this cost 10 times as much as the rest of this. And so this is just something good to have. You can buy it fairly reasonable, and you can slowly build up. But there's also 99% silver, Walking Liberties, and different things. I have those as well. And those are more toward just more investment or more just protecting my wealth. This is for bartering, trading, and buying things. But guys, again, there's nothing to replace that tangible wealth in your hands. It's not investing in some company that has gold put back in some bank. This is in your possession, and that's what I love. Medications, prescription drugs definitely are important. Sometimes it's life-saving, and one of the things about it is if over time they start to lose potency or they actually change. So having a doctor that'll give you a little bit of ahead of time, give you some extra prescription is great, but it doesn't always work. Also, just your Tylenol, your Advil, Imodium, things like that. Also, vitamins, and we have a lot of different vitamins. We kind of go more toward the natural path. And so these are just things to have set aside. Also, your antibiotic ointments, your burn ointments, your eye wash, things like that. When it comes to medical gear, a good trauma kit is something you should have around, even in your vehicle, at home, but also just standard medical supplies. And this is from amp3.net. This is a USN ER doc, and this is one of the most comprehensive little kits out there. And it rolls up, it goes in the back of your car. I mean, we take these on trips. It has everything listed out. So having medical supplies, guys, you could possibly be your own doctor. And that's a scary thought, but having the supplies you need are going to put you way ahead and get training. And this just rolls right up. Makes it so easy, well thought out. And there are other sets out there, but this is one of the best. Storing up ammunition, definitely something, any crisis, this stuff dries up. And here we have a number of handgun calibers, but I highly recommend getting the calibers that you use the most, what you use for self-defense. And really for me, I like to go more with the NATO calibers or with 7.62 by 39, 5.56, 308. Those are my rifle calibers. I definitely have a lot of others, but that's what I like to have extra. And guys, you can defend your home, you can defend your life, but you can also use this for bartering if you need to. Now the Battery Daddy, it just is a caddy for your batteries, and you can put a ton of different batteries in here. It even has a battery tester. But storing up batteries are going to be a vital part, making sure that you have the batteries that you need and you can use. One of the things this will not fit is the ion lithium batteries, and so I have those separate. But this is definitely a great way to keep all your batteries. Just make sure you kind of go through them and rotate them. Flashlight technology has come a long way, and this is my EDC. It's one of the Olight arc felds, and this one is the UV model. And these things are awesome. I mean, they put out an amazing amount of light, and I mean, it's just blindingly bright. But in a EMP situation, the circuit boards on these could be shorted out. So what I like to do is to have good incandescent bulb lights. It's old school. It doesn't put out near as much as far as lumens go. But these old mag lights, they'll last forever. And this one does have an LED in it, so you've got to watch to see. But I really like the incandescent bulbs, and if you can't find them in the stores, you can find them on eBay, even used ones. In fact, some of these I purchased on eBay, or you can possibly get them on Amazon. But this is also a incandescent bulb in this one, and this is one of the Scorpions, and it's an older light, but it puts out a decent amount of light even though it's incandescent. And you can get some of the bigger mag lights. There are lights out there with incandescent bulbs, and I would highly recommend getting some extra bulbs. Of course, you've got your batteries, and then you have light. And light is not only your #1 security tool, but in the dark, it puts you ahead of the game if you have light. Fire starting. I mean, that is a vital element, fire. And you can use it to cook your food, you can keep warm, you can give yourself light, keep predators at bay. It just builds up your morale. It is essential. One thing I do is I'll go pick up some of these Bic lighters every once in a while when I'm at the store, and I've built up quite a bit. And I keep them in the original packaging because one of the problems is the wheels get corroded sometimes or the fuel runs out. And so don't just rely though on lighters. They're the easiest, most convenient. But having matches, and what I really like are these waterproof storm matches. You can actually submerge these in water and they will relight. And you can keep them in watertight containers. And I mean, there's just a number of different things that you can do with these. In fact, these I picked up, I believe, at Home Depot. I bought a case of them, and they were fairly reasonable. But you can get online and pick up these. They're a little more expensive. But all of these things, sooner or later, will run out. And you have the bow drill method. That's great if you know how to do that, but it's a lot of work. One thing I do like are ferrocerium rods, or ferro rods. And so these are from Exotac. They're great. They're called fire rods, and they last for a long time, and you can get extra rods for them, replacements. And there's a ton of other ways to start fire, but get yourself a good solid fire kit and put back lighters, matches, ferro rods, fire steels, different things that you can use. Because again, it is one of the essential elements that you need. And also, if you're going for the ferro rods, you get a 20% off using Sootch 20 with the link down below in the description from Exotac, all made in the USA. Now, firewood may seem plentiful, but in a grid down situation, it gets gone quickly. So it's good to go ahead and have some stocked up, even if you don't have a fireplace. Here we have another wood pile, and this is mainly just for our fire pit. And we have a lot of smaller sticks because we want to build a smaller fire. But you need to build small fires first to build up to those bigger logs. Now, keeping extra propane tanks available, especially the 20-pounders, we have a lot of these we store up. And so this is really one way to have a stable fuel source for heating and for cooking. Also, when it comes to propane, the 1-pounders are great. And they're small, they are easy to store, they last for a long time. And you can use them for cooking, you can use them for heating, you can use them for light. Propane is a very stable, long-lasting fuel source, and I highly recommend storing up those. And they're very stable. Maps, the lost art of reading maps. Guys, with GPS, we can be lost in just around the corner. And so having maps is important as well. I mean, you keep these in your vehicle, keep these at home. And if you need to use them, know where you're going, especially if you're traveling, or you're out somewhere when an EMP hits. Having maps is going to get you home in the shortest time possible. The one thing a lot of people don't think about are fire extinguishers. I mean, you may have some for your house, but in an EMP situation, there could be fire started because of that electromagnetic pulse. And so having fire extinguishers handy in different areas and having multiples. Hand tools. Very important, good quality tools. You know, the one thing about it, there's a lot of tools made in China right now, but there are some good quality tools still coming from there. So look for quality tools. Try not to buy just cheap, what I like to call flea market tools, or just online some no-name brand, because they won't last. And in a grid down situation, having good solid tools are important. You know, having a cordless drill is great, but if you don't have any power or if an EMP has knocked it out, it's not going to do you any good. So have good, solid tools. Heavy mill trash bags. These are contractor bags. They are thick, and you can actually use this. In fact, we keep these in all of our go bags. It can be used for shelter. It can be used for harvesting water. You can carry things in it. You can patch a roof with it if you have a leak. And if you have a storm and something happens, you can do repairs. And so these, to me, are one of the most useful tools out there, and they're fairly inexpensive. And they come in these big rolls, and again, they're very inexpensive. I typically get the contractor bags at Home Depot or Lowe's, and I keep these handy all the time, and we use them all the time. Tarps also with this would be a good option, especially if you need to make cover. But these are cheap, and you can use them over and over if you want to, and they're just great to have. Don't get the little trash can trash bags. Those things don't last. They tear even when you're taking out the trash. These things are made for putting yard materials and construction materials in a bag. These things are awesome. Now, having actual books, not electronic books, not Kindle, but having a number of different books. These are just a few. I just pulled them out to show you guys. And don't forget about the classics, like Alas Babylon, Earth Abides. I mean, some of those are some of the best books out there. But the Going Home series, the James Wesley Rawls series, just so many. And then you have just practical guides that you can use, reference material, the SAS Survival Handbook. I mean, there's so many. So go ahead and start building your collection and look for some of the best. Look for bestsellers, because those are the ones you really want. So guys, there are definitely some more items that you could add to this list, but this is a starting point. And put together those items, have them put back, and it'll give you a greater chance of survival. If there are other things that you've thought about, down in the comments below, leave it, and we'll read it, other people read it, and it just helps the whole community. Because guys, let's face it, we're in this together. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. Could be affected by. There's also a way to purify it. But, feature really. And not the Star Wars Republic.